I've literally been running from session to session all day. There's 1,000 abstracts and papers on studies to do with CLL here, so trying to get across a lot of the data. And what's been particularly exciting for me to see is how much has happened in the period since the European Hematology Association meeting in Stockholm only a few months ago, and now here in San Diego, where a lot of the trial data is being published. And a lot of the trial data that we've heard today has been in that treatment-naive cohort, those patients who've entered trials not having any previous treatment. In particular, the novel therapies. So there is definitely a move away from chemoimmunotherapy towards these novel therapies, these BTK inhibitors like ibrutinib and BCL2 inhibitor venetoclax. And a lot of the early data is coming out of those trials. Obviously, when they're testing these new therapies, they start with very sick patients. So I was on a phase 1 trial as a relapsed and refractory patient. So it's fascinating to see how well patients who've never had previous treatment are responding on these novel therapies, never having been exposed to chemoimmunotherapy. Now, there still is a role for chemo, and that has come out today. The guidelines for treatment are still exactly the same as they were in 2008, that we go into a period of watch and wait, and we don't treat until people are becoming symptomatic and those symptoms require the disease being brought under control. But the idea now that you don't have to have FCR and BR if you have high-risk disease, and that you can go into a clinical trial and have ibrutinib frontline or venetoclax frontline. And the data, some of these trials are now 2 years out, particularly the venetoclax rituximab Murano trial. The progression-free survival is at the same level as chemo, and that to be able to get to that level without having chemo and having the dangers that chemo has down the track is just, I'm very excited for patients who've been diagnosed recently or who are still in watch and wait, because the future is really promising from the data we're seeing here. And on that note, if anyone wants to read the papers, they are tough reading, some of them, but you can go to the American Society of Hematology website and you can download them. So not only can you look online and see the interviews that doctors are doing for portals such as VJ Hemonc, and Leukemia Care is obviously pumping out a lot of these as well, but you can actually read that hard data yourself, and that's fascinating for me as a patient.